Talkin' GK with Conway.
Welcome, my friends, to another edition of Talking GK with Conway. It is I, Conway Fitzgerald, and this is the Insider Talk Show about my novel, The Giant Killers, for those of you who are here for the first time. Coming up right after this short episode, the Chapter 18 live premiere. If you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe and feel free to chat throughout. I will be live right here, available to discuss anything and everything with you folks. I have so much appreciation from my listeners and my Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. It means a lot. And you're the fuel that keeps me going. On this show, I have another very special guest. He's one of my subscribers who reached out to offer some help and offer me to help try to get me up to date with some of the RPG questions some of you folks have asked, because I'm a little out of date with it, as you may have noticed. And so he's going to help us with that, discuss a little bit of the evolution of role-playing and how that might reflect for some of those who have asked me for utilizing the context of this story for your own campaigns, which I think is great. So I'm trying to help you guys do that. So he's helping me help you. So that's coming up. But first, I wanted to sort of break down the fourth wall a little bit and share something personal with you folks. On Sunday morning, I lost my father. Yeah, he was a great man, and he was 84 years old. He passed away after having a long summer struggle after a heart attack, and he was a very kind man. Everywhere I would go, everyone would take me aside and say, "Your father's so nice." He had what some folks refer to as Minnesota nice, because that's where he grew up. He was also a fantastic father. I really couldn't have asked for a better role model, and just someone who was always there for me, and I always appreciate that about him. He was also a radio man, so he made a living speaking into a microphone, and many of you have probably heard him as a network radio anchor for many years, and like many of you, my dad was a fan of this show and of the audiobook, and like many of you, he asked if he could get in on it. He really wanted to read and be a part of it. So I thought it would be fun to try. Now, I did offer for him to take a shot at reading the part of Master Silas. And suffice it to say, it's really difficult just to have anyone other than me read, because I know exactly what I want. I know exactly how it's supposed to sound, and I'm very particular about that. It was tough, to be perfectly honest. Right now, I would like to share with you. I was up all night trying to edit through a scene so I could give my father the crack at it that he so desperately wanted. So here it is. John Grimes as Master Silas.
He must still be dreaming. That is when he heard a voice pierce through the sound of dropping rain.
Fire's warm, yes?
Dan stood up and assumed a defensive posture as an old man emerged from the shadows. His bearded face flickered in the firelight as he approached.
I called out and did not see anyone. I was hungry and in search of shelter, sir,
replied Dan, looking behind him for others who might now be encircling him.
It appears you have found it.
The old man smiled and took a seat on the ground on the opposite side of the fire from Dan.
That's the beauty of a fire. It offers its warmth equally to all those who surround it. It doesn't choose, but of course you cannot possess it. You can't be too close or within it, or else you will be burned.
He smiled. Dan took another bite of the rabbit, trying to dissect the strange man's meaning. The rabbit was tender and cooked perfectly.
I'm sorry I stole your food. I was hungry.
Eat, young one. I have plenty of more food. I have more water. But like you, I prefer to sit beside the warmth of the fire, where I share the fires. Sometimes I feed it.
The old man tossed some dust on the fire that caused it to burn brightly. The fire glowed magically with shifting colors.
Who are you?
Asked Dan, now suspicious that he was being trapped. He dropped the rabbit and spit out the meat he was chewing.
What is this?
The old man smiled.
Fear not, young Dan.
Dan's expression changed as the man acknowledged he knew who he was.
My name is Silas. I am the High Mage of the Order of the Sacred Fire. You were on your way to my home when you decided to run away. Why? Did our messengers offend you?
Dan stood up defensively.
What do you people want from me? Have I been freed from one jailer, just to be placed into the hands of another?
The bright white light of the flame dimmed and returned to a slow burn. Silas took a deep breath and exhaled with a smile.
Oh, no, you are free to go, Dan.
The old man laughed softly.
I was concerned, but certainly, if you choose, you may leave the side of the fire. Go then. Find your way alone, young Tenuvial. I will tell the others.
The old man whispered something as he turned his back, and with a hand gesture, the fire went out. Then all at once, the camp and the High Mage Silas himself disappeared from sight.
I love you, Dad. My next guest is someone who offered to help me with something I really needed help with, and that's interpreting my story into a language that you gamers can use. You've asked, and I've tried, but I'm so out of touch as far as the gaming is concerned that I turned to one of my subscribers who offered to help. So please welcome my next guest, probably the only guy who could follow the previous segue, the one and only Darth Vader. So welcome, Darth Vader. Now, you're known as Darth Vader on YouTube. Do you own that name exclusively?
I don't. It's technically a Disney name,
I was
and
gonna say
through
I'm coming out
Lucasfilm,
after you.
obviously. So, just putting that out there right off the get-go. But I use it through YouTube so that it's kind of my moniker on YouTube and online.
Excellent. And obviously you're a huge Star Wars fan,
Yes.
as am I.
Yeah.
Cool. So I came to know you as one of my subscribers through the Giant Killers. So thank you very much. And
Most welcome.
And Vader, you reached out to me and offered some help, and I appreciate that so much. And one of the things that you offered to help me was to try to bridge the gap between my archaic knowledge of the current state of the role-playing game Dungeons and Dragons, past and present. So I thank you for taking some time to share some of that with our audience and see how it might apply to some of the things I've described. So,
Absolutely.
but before we go there, I'm also a huge Star Wars fan, and at risk of being sued by Disney Corp, may I share one of my favorite scenes with you of Star Wars?
Hit me.
I'm going to perform it, folks. I'm going to perform it live, okay? So here we go. He is here. Obi-Wan Kenobi, what makes you think so? A tremor in the Force. I hadn't felt it since I was last in the presence of my old master. Surely he must be dead by now. Do not underestimate the power of the Force. Surely it must be mistaken. The Jedi are extinct. Their fire has gone out to the universe.
You, my friend, are all that's left of their religion. Doot, doot. Security alert, Sector 838. The princess? Notify all sectors. Obi-Wan is here. The Force is with him. Well, if you're right, he can't be allowed to escape. Escape is not his plan. I must face him alone. And scene.
Awesome. Awesome. Excellent. Excellent.
Well, thank you, Darth. Appreciate it. Now, for those of you watching, I have posted some character stats. Now, I did write this book as sort of an homage to some of my ancient years of gaming, and it doesn't necessarily have to fall within these confines, but a lot of you have reached out to me and said, hey, can I use some of these characters for my own games? And I just think that is so cool. So my answer is absolutely. And Darth here has offered to help to update the thing. So, I was asked, hey, is this first edition? What are you talking about? So, what did I miss? Tell me a little bit, Darth, about the difference between, the original AD&D versus the progression of 5e.
So in the original AD&D, things were a lot stricter as far as what you could do with characters and character class. The math was a lot more complicated. I'm sure you remember things like THAC0.
I don't. What is
Okay, so maybe that didn't come around until second edition, but they had back then when you had armor class, you wanted a lower armor class.
Right. Yes.
And the lower your armor class, the better it was.
Right, and you can max out at minus.
Well, now, for example, in 5th edition, you want a higher armor class.
Okay.
The higher your armor class, the better. And it makes it more difficult for creatures to hit you.
So is it still, though, that you have hit points and then you can take a number of shots until you're dead and that sort of a thing?
It is, but unlike 1st edition, where your hit points can go into the negative before you start making saving throws, now, once in 5th edition, once you reach 0 hit points, you can still kind of go into the negative, but once you hit 0 hit points, then you start making death saving throws.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, that's one of the main changes they made. A lot of things that were in 1st edition, they really streamlined in 5th edition.
Yeah, I guess they made a whole bunch of different classes, right? Because
that was another thing. There's a lot of different
Rangers, Paladins, and then now there's barbarians and berserkers and all these other things.
Yeah, there's barbarians, there's rogues. There's not just magic users anymore. Now it's broken down into wizards, warlocks, sorcerers. You have different classes of magic users, druids, clerics. All these different subclasses.
Right.
And even the subclasses have subclasses.
Wow. Well, I one of the things, and I'll bring it up when we get into some of the character descriptions, is they also, I guess, streamlined a lot of the different races and things. Do they still have the alignments? Is that something that they still...
They do. Okay. But they don't focus so heavily on the alignment system anymore. Mm-hmm. Some GMs might, some GMs might not. Right. It depends on your GM and their play style.
Right.
I've played with some GMs that focus very heavily on the alignment system, and if you violate it, you pay a heavy price. And I've played with some GMs that just completely ignore it.
Right. Okay, yeah, because I guess for part of it is that, I tried in the way I detail this story to make it really difficult for someone like Airmine to befriend and be part of this, order of do-gooders. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Even Dan himself, you could see, like, really pushes the limits of, being within it. But, they're very suspicious of her, and she's really just a neutral, but like, I would consider her what we would call a neutral good.
And I've tried to take that into account while making these characters too, as well. Staying true to the lore that you've presented us with in your stories.
Well, awesome. Let's get into it now. You've gone the extra mile, and not only given me some advice, but you have actually created brand new character sheets for all of the characters that I have thus presented. and you have made them available on D&D and Beyond. So how do they see this now? How do we get people to be able to see this?
I can provide links to you that anybody can click on the link, and it'll pull up the character sheet in D&D Beyond, and it'll provide them with their stats and equipment. Some of the equipment I had to customize, like Queltaver.
Yeah.
His scepter, there's nothing like it at all in D&D Beyond, so I had to completely make it from scratch.
All right, well that's awesome. I'll share the links then for the various characters, and then as we go and I show some more of these characters, then you'll be able to update them further still.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And one of the things to keep in mind is, in my creating these characters, some of the stats may look a little wonky.
Right, that's 18 isn't the top anymore, right?
Now 18 is no longer the max. Now it's 20.
Okay. So does Dan have a 20 charisma? That's what I want to know, because he was supposed to be like the movie star of movies.
He has a 20 charisma and a 21 strength.
Yeah, okay, because he's got the girdle of
because he's got the girdle of hill giant strength. Yes, that still gives a 21 strength.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's perfect.
So one of the things I want to remind your viewers is to keep in mind that these are characters from a novelization. Right. These aren't just straight D&D characters.
Right.
These are coming from a book to D&D, not from D&D.
Hammer a square peg into a circular hole there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So some of these characters you need to check with your GM before playing. They may not allow them.
Right. Exactly. Well, awesome. Darth, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me and share with my audience. As I mentioned, we will continue to update. And folks, hey, everyone, stay tuned for the live Chapter 18 premiere. We'll both be listening, and we'll be around to answer questions that you might have. Feel free to fire away and enjoy the Season 2 finale.
I've added some links in the video description, so for those of you who are interested and want to check out what Darth has done, and again, it's open to your own interpretation. This is just designed to help you folks make it work, and I know a lot of you have asked me for that, so I hope that helps you. And if you have any suggestions or ideas, you can always reach out to me anytime. Okay, folks. Well, listen, I'm going to afford you a few minutes before the big premiere, so you can use the restroom if you need to, or go get your popcorn and your soda pop. I'll be listening right here with you live as we have the Chapter 18 live premiere coming up right now.
This has been Talkin' GK with Conway. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends.